The rain rapped impatiently against the window pane. A second storm, resonating within my chest, matched the ticking of the droplets. I was home alone that night, which had been a long time coming. This house felt excessively lonely without my husband Anderson, who departed for a brief work trip. As I began to read my book, I found myself unconsciously nodding off. As the blanket drooped over the edge of the mattress, the pages of the book remained exposed on the bed. The room was lit only by a single low-light bulb, the warm light of which danced delicately on my skin. As I drifted in and out of sleep, I perceived the gentle creak of the door opening. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It wasn't a dream. "Hello, Liam." Beside the entrance he stood. He was illuminated by the icy white light that emanated from the corridor. His broad shoulders drooped ever so slightly, drawing attention to his sharp features. He looked oddly younger and older than 19. As if he had been caught in the rain on a warm night, his black t-shirt clung to his chest and his moist curls stuck to his forehead. Water dripped down his chin and left small splotches on the hardwood floor. Plus he kept an eye on me. He glanced across at my nightgown, where the strap had come undone. My heart rate increased for what felt like an eternity. I yanked the blanket up over my head in a sudden motion. But by then it had passed. His stare had already left an impression on my flesh. His voice was hardly audible as he spoke to Aunt Clara. His name calling out to me has always seemed out of place. Anderson had a son named Liam through a relative. He was technically a member of our family as his father was married to my sister. Except for last summer, he had never felt truly integrated into it. With a broken expression on his face and a rucksack over one shoulder, he had unexpectedly turned up at my door one day. It was a very public divorce he had claimed. Not only did I allow him in, but I hadn't even inquired what he meant. Liam was an integral element of my life ever since that day. Imagine my surprise when I found him standing alone in my room at midnight. Even though it wasn't cold, goosebumps appeared on my skin. "Are you even here?" "Please," I whispered. "Make sure you subscribe and enable notifications before Liam drives everything to new extremes. I guarantee that you will be captivated and prepared to share your thoughts by the story's conclusion." With that, Liam advanced a step. The little sound of the floor's woodworking giving way under his weight reached my ears. "I couldn't sleep," he reported. He had gotten a deeper, rougher voice. It dawned on me then that he was clearly no longer a boy. There was no longer any naivete in his gaze when he met mine. Something more sinister or profound was there. Some things keep circling in my head. A sense of things pervaded the atmosphere. As we were alone, it blossomed. I could put myself in his shoes and understand his thoughts at that same second. During the time when we worked side by side on the stove, when our fingertips unintentionally touched, while he sat alone on the balcony, his gaze remained fixed on me. On those evenings when I caught a glimpse of him peering down at me from the terrace, his cigarette ash resembling small, enraged stars. When he unintentionally referred to me as Clara, I felt a sharp pain in my ribs and turned red. Those were also memories of mine. The plan, though, was to bury and forget about them. I warned Liam that he had no business being here. I should have been more forceful with my voice. At the foot of my bed, Liam took a long seat. Under his weight, the mattress sank. Something within of me gave way at that very second. His breath was on me and I averted my gaze. I felt a chill run down my spine when his wet jacket caressed my blanket. "I told you you were trembling." I, however, was the one quivering. Actually, he whispered something. However, it seemed as though he was grinning as he spoke. A stray hair was delicately plucked from my cheek by his fingertips, which he then tucked behind my ear. My jawline was lightly caressed by his fingertips as he did this. I gasped for air. I had a gut feeling that this was a bad idea. But who am I, really? I was sweltering all over. "Hello, Liam." His name I uttered. However, I failed to discern whether the message was inviting or cautionary. My bottom lip was lightly nibbled by his thumb. He spoke clean about his desire to do this upon arrival. There was an aura of naked, potentially harmful confessionality. Thunder rumbled outside, tearing the night sky apart. For a brief moment I wondered if we would make it through what was to come. Everything changed that night. Sitting on the edge of my bed in my room, Liam watched me intently. Within him a tempest was brewing. Somehow I sensed it. The most terrible thing, though, was that I also had one inside of me. My breath was coming in gasps as I stared at him. The rain continued to fall. Its reverberations drew us farther into the darkness of the room. Slightly slouched were Liam's shoulders. He appeared fatigued. However, they were also anticipating something. I whispered softly that you're lonely and that you feel terrible. Liam averted his gaze. His silence was deafening. This could have been a chance for me to show that I am an adult, a strong woman. As a caretaker, I could have stepped in. However, there was a part of me that understood the significance of this moment as well. With a determined tone, I told you that you may spend the night in my room. Perhaps you will feel better if you are near to someone. My gaze immediately caught Liam's. His expression betrayed his uncertainty. Holy cow! That hesitancy vanished at that moment. Gently, he gave a nod. Is that right? I choked. Absolutely, it will benefit you. What was beneficial for him was completely at odds with my internal feelings. I justified it to myself as a means of lending a hand. A lonely boy needed my comfort. To be honest, though, this was also a way for me to avoid being alone. Unfamiliar, youthful, and powerful was Liam. Certainly not a blood relative. It was like entering a forbidden room when we spent the night together. Some part of me was telling me no. However, another darker and more menacing voice was also saying yes. The distance between us felt like a wall when he lay down on the opposite side of the bed. Nevertheless, it fell short of quelling my emotions. With the goal of calming my breathing, I shut my eyes. Still, I could sense his physical presence in every fiber of my being. Does this night have to be this way? There was yet more to come. Even though this was just a temporary setback. The room next to me was vacant when I awoke this morning. For a brief second, my breath became faster as my eyes fluttered open. I raised my head and drew back. I had lost the grip on the blanket. As the strap of my nightgown dropped lower and lower off my shoulder, my attire became disheveled. For what seemed like an eternity, I did nothing but sit there. Tell me what transpired. A wave of uncertainty washed over me. May it be so? Clara, stop it, I said to myself in a harsh, low voice. Surely this was not possible. It was unwarranted. However, I can't contain the enthusiasm that's building up inside of me at the prospect of it. There was no denying it. My nightgown was swiftly repositioned. This is too much for me to contemplate. True, he had slept on my bed, but that was it. There was no change. There was no change. After that, I heard the door slam open and witnessed Liam enter. A towel was all he had on. He was covered in a thin film of water. He appeared composed, with damp hair and a cloudy face. According to him, who ran his fingers through his moist hair, he had been perspiring heavily earlier in the day. He felt the towel's edge move ever so slightly beneath his fingertips. Was it last night that I visited your room? I was probably completely insane at the time. Your attention for me is really appreciated. He was the object of my fixation. Was that all? Was that the only thing? I pushed down the slight wave of disappointment as soon as it swept through me. I was visible to him. He witnessed my sleeping habits yesterday night. The manner in which my pajamas had changed. How I had seemed while lying in bed. Everything was visible to him. An odd combination of shame and anticipation coursed through me as I entertained the idea. I forced myself to look normal, so I averted my eyes and smiled slightly at him. No big deal, Liam. I had no issues with it. However, that was false. Acting as though it were unimportant. Overlooking the attraction that exists between us. Seeking to quench the raging inferno within me. I have no idea how much longer I could go on playing this game. We prepared breakfast side by side. As we made our way around the kitchen, an unsaid intimacy grew between us. However, we failed to recognize it. From time to time, Liam would steal a short peek at me before swiftly averting his gaze. Last night's reverberations had not yet left me. It seemed like any other morning. However, it was not the case. Evenings would pass. It would be as if nothing had transpired. Nightfall, though, signaled that nothing would remain constant. Simply said, the game was destroyed by drinking. It would be days before Anderson returned. There was still Liam. Stayed by my side. However, my doubts were sown this morning when I awoke to discover his absence and watched him exit the shower as if nothing had happened. Had he truly forgotten? Was he feigning forgetfulness, or did he really recall? Finding out could only be done in one way: alcohol. To help him unwind and let his guard down, I devised a nighttime ritual that would expose his deepest secrets. It is said that the truth can be found on an intoxicated person's lips. My goal for the evening was to witness Liam's tongue relax up. I went to the kitchen in the evening and chose one of the stronger beverages, a dark amber whiskey made by Anderson, the one he hoarded for rare and exceptional occasions, leaving it to collect dust on the shelf. I brought it into the living room and found Liam engrossed in the television as he sat on the couch. He sported one of those laid-back tees that manages to look good no matter what. He appeared at ease as he spread his legs wide. The thing is, I was hoping he would finally let go. With the bottle held aloft, I proposed that we take it easy for a while tonight. Liam arched an eyebrow in my direction. A hint of hesitancy was there in his eyes as he grinned slightly. I shrugged, thinking you were never a big drinker. It is necessary to break the rules sometimes. For a split second he stared at me. We both understood at that same second that this was all a game. However, who would come out on top? In the end, he just shrugged and dug himself farther into the sofa. Then please, Clara, pour me a drink. Let me fill your cups. The initial swallows were forceful and painful. However, the pace of drinking increased as the discussion intensified. We started with light conversation as some soothing music played in the background. Existence, aspirations for the future, the residents and his loved ones. However, the topics became more in-depth when the glasses were empty. The color had changed in Liam's eyes. He was more relaxed and I was prepared. Something inside of me was coming undone as I sipped the last of my glass. Everything about that night, the intoxication, the emotions that had been resonating within me for an eternity, was a blur. At this point they could do no wrong. I set my drink down on the table and met Liam's gaze. Also he kept staring, but now there was a shift in his expression. There was hesitancy, curiosity, and possibly even dread. Last night, can you recall it? Slowly I inquired. Liam's grip on his glass became immobile. Subtly, his breathing became faster. I was hoping for that kind of response. I refused to let it go, even if he averted his gaze. I crouched down slightly. It seemed as if the space between us had vanished. I called him Liam. Due to the booze, my voice is a little wobbly. Verify everything for me. Allison gulped. I looked up and saw him raise his head to meet mine. Oh, he told Clara. He said in a barely audible whisper. His gaze was intense and blazing. However, I persisted. Recall, would you not? Then I pushed. Is it true that you can't remember? Or are you just acting that way? Even as Liam parted his lips, he remained silent. That hush, those fleeting moments of nothingness. Within me it smoldered. I was fed up. Assuming that you do recall, I murmured softly. Hence you are avoiding eye contact with me. As he combed his fingers through his hair, Liam inhaled deeply. At last he cocked his head in my direction. As he spoke he recalled. Despite his low voice, his words were audible. It held true. I narrowed my eyes a little. Something more akin to contentment replaced that stifling sensation within me. However, it fell short. I desired more. Having you by my side last night felt natural, didn't it? I stated. At that very second it didn't seem strange. It was clear that Liam was unhappy. Yet, at that very second it didn't seem strange. Next what? I inquired. A moment's quietness passed. For some reason Liam just kept staring at me. He stated that it is now humiliating. The edge of his voice hardening. Clara, you're challenging me now. Tell me what you're aiming for. Something other than wrath was audible in his voice. A certain openness. That was just the message I was hoping to receive. The fire within me intensified. Liam tightened his grip on his fist before letting go. Although he attempted to steady his breathing, I inched closer to him. Clara, what are you requesting? Is that so? He inquired. Weary and harsh, his voice. I feel like you're going to embarrass me. Are you asking whether I recall last night? However, you pretended as if nothing had occurred. It was the standard in those days. Consequently, why on earth are you acting this way at this very moment? In that instant, I beheld Liam entirely exposed before my eyes. A sense of loss was visible in his gaze. On the other hand, he felt internal conflict. I surrendered to the raging inferno within. I met his gaze while resting my hands on the table. "Oh," he told Clara. Anger quivered in his voice. "Did you intentionally intoxicate me for the purpose of this?" His gaze never strayed from mine while he spoke. In an effort to comprehend, he was inquiring. Now was not the time to pause and consider. At that very moment, I leant in and kissed him without thinking twice. In that one passionate kiss, all of their pent-up feelings were released. Instinctively, Liam reached for my waist as if to push me away. Initially, he froze. However, he chose not to. In his own mind, he was battling. I had already won. Though, things were taking a wholly different turn that evening. It was something that we were both aware of. Unsteady on my feet, I abruptly rose to my feet. I clenched my fists around the glass as I took the whiskey bottle off the table. As the old sting returned, I gulped down another drink. It wasn't simply the whiskey, though, that was making me explode this time. I made my way to the couch, never taking my gaze off Liam. My gait is measured and methodical. It wasn't the wine. I felt a shiver go up my spine. With my hand still warm from holding the bottle, I fell into the couch and placed it next me. Then, mindlessly, I removed my dress's straps and let the fabric fall to the floor. My gaze remained fixed on Liam. "Quite a task. Just a game," I muttered to Liam. "Didn't you always prefer things to move fast?" And there was a certain conviction behind it all. Alistair stood motionless. He was staring at me intently as he observed my every action, as though the enormity of the situation had struck him like a shockwave. His chest was rapidly rising and falling. He stepped carefully toward me after that. He leaned in, his knee resting alongside me, and his hand rested against the couch armrest. He was about to breath out soon. Warm. Deep. I felt a shudder go through my body, but I was determined not to back down this time. Our inebriation served merely to fuel our determination. Liam refused to retreat. He advanced. We agreed on everything. Something substantial like a warmth was residing inside of me. A great deal of warmth was what I required. Somewhat anxious was Liam. Even though I had just irritated him, I no longer gave a hoot. Actually, I was more enthralled by his anxiety than anything else. To be honest, Liam preferred things to go quickly. Convulsions made my entire body tremble. "That was absolutely incredible," I exclaimed. I was nervous. I was flushed and gasping for air. "Liam, this feeling is so big and indescribably beautiful," I whispered as I met his gaze. "I am incredibly grateful. Thank goodness last night you kept it in mind." Laughing sneakily, I said. I was going to ask if it wasn't a bit late, but then I remembered. Finally, Liam surrendered entirely. I was overcome with an overwhelming sense of affection and a tremendous warmth. He was both inebriated and worn out. Adjacent to me, he dozed out. While Liam thought about us, I continued to drink. My excitement was already skyrocketing when I thought about what was to come. This is how far you've come. My tale has touched you, I know it has. Remind yourself to subscribe. To make sure you don't miss any more stories like this, be sure to turn on notifications and comment on this one. Leave a like and tell me what you think. I'm excited to hear from you.